Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're going to work on an Avet. It's a 5.3 Avet, the silver framed. I believe this is a left-handed reel. John brought it into the shop. He had it apart and says, well, since he's put it back together, it's not working right. So I'd like to test what I can before I do this. And before I get into the testing, I want to encourage all of you to subscribe to my channel if you like the art of reel repair. And if you'd like to see how reels are made, and maybe you're considering buying one and you want to find out a little bit more about the reel, well, all of those things are covered on my channel, and I encourage you to subscribe to see what the latest is. Well, I noticed one thing before I even got started here. I have a reel that's got braid slip on it. But let's start the testing. We have the testing by going into free spool. Well, whatever we did on the spool side seems to work. Lockdown. Reel's turning. If you hold your hand on the braid and turn, you're going to find out that the reel is still turning because he's got a condition called braid slip. And with braid slip, you need to back any kind of braid on these reels with monofilament before you put the braid on. The braid is just too slippery to grab the arbor of the spool, and that's what happens. So a lot of times folks will say, I got it all tightened down and my reel's still pulling the line out. Well, that's a condition of braid slip. You can tell that if you hold the line and turn and see that your spool is turning. Well, that's an indication of that. Well, apparently one of the issues here is that the anti-reverse is not set properly. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart. We'll show you how it comes apart. We'll show you a quick service of the reel. We're not going to do the full service. He did that. But we are going to try and correct that condition. And again, this is a left-handed drive reel. So if you have the right-handed drive, just kind of think mirror image on some of these assemblies. If you are not familiar with the Avet reel that you have and you're attempting a service, please go ahead and take the time to go get the schematic for the reel. And make sure as you do all of this that you take pictures along the way as you remove the pieces and the parts. So I'm going to remove that. That should be a 12 millimeter. It's not. It's an 11. So I need the 11 millimeter wrench. And I keep my my tools right on my bench because I want to be able to access them without walking away or walking too far from the reel, so that I don't have to put it down and forget about things. Handle comes off. Beneath that is the washer, and all of the pieces I take I put into a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container, and you can use whatever you like, but I do recommend that you have a way to organize your pieces and parts, and use a parts tray is a good way to do that. We're going to remove the lever drag adjuster now. There's a couple of things going on behind here. We have the click ring piece. There's a spring loaded points that are going to tell you as you click in, and there's a spring that sits into the middle of them. So make sure that you take those off and account for them. And then you'll see your lever drag comes off. Here's that click mechanism. You'll see the ridges on this. They're all here, and as those points hit those ridges, that's going to help you there. And then underneath here, you're going to poke that out for a moment. You just have a channel that rides in, and you have 3 grip points below that are actually ramps inside here. If you look at them from a side view, they kind of go up. Right? None of them has anything to do with the anti-reverse. That's inside the gear chamber, so we're going to get there. They use these Torx screws for assembly. I have some wrenches that are Torx tipped wrenches. You can also use a bit set where those Torx are in there. I said wrenches, I meant drivers, but you guys know what I mean. I'm going to take the 2 sides off, and again, just make sure that you are aware of how these pieces come on and come off. And notice on the back that one that fell off is actually a spacer on the back end of this side. Keep them together and then put them into the parts tray as well. Well, we have 3 case screws now. I don't think there's any underneath. There's none underneath. There's 3 case screws. I'm going to take those off next. And that's actually a smaller Torx screw. And I always wonder when these folks put these reels together from a design perspective, why they keep changing all the tools on you. I can imagine the line where the assembly goes for these things having all kinds of crazy tools hanging around there because, well, you got to switch wrenches and switch drivers and things like that. Okay, let's get this last one off and this whole case should come out. What I'm doing now is I'm laying the 3 screws onto my bench because I want to make sure that they're the same size. If there was one that was longer or shorter, and it happens all the time, I would note where that piece is. We should be able to remove the side plate now. This is your drive piece. Here's your spool assembly. In the back, we're okay with that. You can push the assembly through. You're going to find out that you have a grip for your back case that's going to anchor your axle shaft. You have about 4 tension washers that are next on the shaft, a little collar washer that's going to hold your bearing. The bearing, I know John said he serviced it, but for our purposes I'm going to throw a little bit more oil on there. Then you have a spacer shaft, and you can take all of that and just, if you wanted to see how that's going to line up, it's going to line up like that in the case where those 2 points are inside the case. We're just going to move it from the other side. I'm going to put this back in. On this side you have a smaller bearing. You have a bearing shield, very small washer, and then you have the compression spring. So that side of the reel is fine. I'm going to squirt some oil on there. This is a Carbon Tex drag. It can be slightly greased if you like. It doesn't have to be. Looks like John's chosen to leave it as it is. We'll take that whole assembly. We're going to just put that into the spool for now. Let's go ahead and take this out then and find out why this dog isn't working. So I'm going to think that maybe, just maybe, that dog is facing the wrong way. Yeah. So when John went to reinstall this, he put the dog upside down. And I know you hear me all the time saying make sure you have reference points. If you look at this and kind of reverse it, it's looking for a tooth to come down on this lever right there. You can see the points. It's looking for a tooth to come in here. The way that it's set up right now is that tooth is going in the same direction, and that will never intersect. The beak is up here. That beak should be facing below. So let's go ahead and take that out. Reverse it, and we'll see if we've restored the reel for John. There's 2 small screws that hold that beak. This is an eccentric driven anti-reverse. It is going to stay free as you drive it, and you can see that long S-shaped bar there. As long as you drive it, you're fine, and then as you turn it around to backpedal the reel, it's going to pull it back down like it's doing here. I just need a little pliers. Probably have too many tools on my bench at the moment. I usually keep a standard set that I know I'm going to use most of the time, and then we supplement that with other pieces as they come in and come out. This probably would have been a good place for him to take pictures, because pictures would have showed you that the beak belongs down, not up, on the reinstall there. Now we're just going to flip it around. There's a tag end of this piece that belongs in there. We're flipping it around. Then you have to make sure that you have this plate on properly. There's 2 sides to it. The flat side with this kind of a rounded piece of it here, that belongs below. And then the pointier side belongs above. And we'll just tighten this up. And we'll see if that makes a difference. So if you're working on the right-hand edition of this reel, the piece would be on the other side. That's why you see that there's a carve out in this case for that. They use the same case. They use the same setup for both. Okay, so I was showing you how to reset the beak, and I just thought to myself, you know, let's go back in and make sure that everything is okay underneath. Don't trust anything, if you will. And I noticed we have a lot of dirt, and if this was just service, this makes it interesting because there is a lot of dirty grease in here. So it doesn't take a moment to do this, and also shows you how to pull all of that apart. So that's just kind of what we did here. I'm going to clean out the older grease. We'll re-grease this, and then we'll go ahead and see if we've corrected the issue there. If you have questions on this reel or any reel in particular, and maybe you're working on one like he was and you got stuck all of a sudden, well, just leave the message on the comments section. I'll try and answer that for you. These are sealed bearings. We don't need to do anything. If you wanted to feel good about it, you can go ahead and put a squirt of oil on there. It won't hurt it. It won't help it. Now we have that little main gear. So the main gear sits like, the drive shaft sits like that. You want to find the drive that has the square side indentation, because that's how this is going to sit on there. Just like that. Make sure you're tight. You can hold that assembly and you can grease the teeth on this now. I'm going to use a fishing reel grease for this. I use Penn Precision Reel Grease, and I've been happy with it, so I use it. I don't care which variety of grease you use, but I do care that you use a fishing reel grease. Alright, I got enough grease on that. Just sit that down for a moment. We have the pinion gear side of this. That's the side that's going to lock into your pressure plate, and that should be this side. It's going to fit in here just like that, and we can go ahead and reinstall and see if we fix this thing now. So I know I took that bar off. We'll show you how to put that bar back on. A little bit of grease onto the main shaft. Go ahead and bring this in. There's a washer that goes here. And go ahead and install that onto the main shaft. And if you're having trouble with this, it doesn't hurt to go ahead, take your handle side, go ahead and put that back on just to hold it in place. But if you're not having trouble with it, don't worry terribly. Now, there's two sides, two ways to do this. You noticed I put the pinion gear into that pressure plate. That's the way I prefer to do it, because it has to lock in. There's a series of ridges here on this piece that are going to lock in and mesh with the pinion gear, and then this is going to slide into the bearing. To me, it's always easier to mesh this portion of it than it is to put this into the bearing and then have the bearing try to mesh this whole side plate thing. Just, it's kind of preference, do what you like. That's kind of the way I prefer to do it. Alright, we'll just go ahead and see if we can't reinstall this then. This bent shaft goes up and under, or under and over, however way you like to do that. But it sits on that stud and under. And we may need to take this this bottom piece off again. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take that off. So a lot of what we're doing here is probably obvious to me because I've worked on a few of these reels before. But if you get stuck, one of the best things to do is go right back to the schematic and to check the orientation, in this case of this anti-reverse dog, because I'm almost certain that that's the failure here. And though my eye can probably pick it out quickly, well, if you're just thinking, okay, I got it right, but something's not right about the performance of the reel, just go back and check. Take your time, be patient. You will get it. Okay, we'll just lock down this bottom piece. That's going to keep your dog from wandering. And this this reel is got that old style kind of anti-reverse backup system, and it works well. You don't need over-engineering. Sometimes you'll see on the bigger lever drag reels you'll have a double anti-reverse dog there, but in this case we're fine. And what we should see now, this is a left-hand drive, so the reel is going to be turning in this direction. As it turns in this direction, you'll see that this bar is pushing up. When it backpedals, it's going to pull that beak down. So let's see if we can do that without disrupting too much. So we're out of the way, and then as soon as you go to backpedal the reel, see how it pulls down? You'll notice this beak right here pulling down. Well, that's your anti-reverse. And what happened here was, again, this is inverted, so you're going to see that wedge part is looking for the beak. When the beak was turned upside down, it couldn't find it. So we'll just, we can go ahead and put this whole assembly in now. And that's why I like to put that in first. Again, another bearing there. We can grab our lever drag piece. Now we've oiled all of those bearings underneath there. Again, you could have put a light coating of drag grease onto this, or you can run it dry. This is a two-sided one. It's only going to take pressure on this side and wear, so after a while, if this one's worn and can't be replaced, well, just turn it over and you can use the other side of this as the piece. I'm going to go ahead now and reassemble. You're going to push in because it is spring-loaded. And we're going to find the three smaller screws. And I know just where they are because, well, I put them in my parts tray. We'll go ahead and line the screw holes up. Grab a screwdriver for these Torx. Let's go ahead and put those in. So my channel covers all types of fishing reels. Today we're working on a lever drag Avet. Tomorrow we might be working on a classic Mitchell or head reel or something. The next day we might be working on a large saltwater trolling reel, and maybe the next day we'll do a low profile bait casting reel that is good for bass. It constantly changes. That's what I love about the variety of this channel, and I hope you like that too. Alright, we're going to take that ring then with the spacers, which have just popped out. This is how I wonder how they do these things when they assemble in the plant. Because, well, I'm sure they get it after a while, but, you know, probably an easier way to do this, right? And we'll grab see if we can find the first hole there. We can. So the second one should line up pretty good. There it is. So now we have the three-pointed star on this one, which is going to work. When it pulls the ramp up, it's going to pull this axle shaft towards me. And when it pulls it towards me, that's when that drag disc is going to engage with that pressure plate, and that's how you're going to get your drag tension. And when you lower it, it's going to fall back into those slots. That's going to release the pressure. The spring is going to push the spool back in the opposite direction, and when it pushes it in the opposite direction, that's where you get your release for free spool. When you do these, you want to make sure that you lock in the bottom, and hopefully you're locking the bottom in over in free spool. Now we have that click mechanism with the spring. I'm going to put that on, and I'm pretty sure that we tighten that normally, even though this is a left-handed reel. We have our spacer for the handle. We have the handle. We have our 11mm wrench here somewhere. There we go. And then we have our tie down collar with the two screws. And hey, we actually got it right. Sometimes you just get lucky. Two screws to hold the tie down together. And we'll be able to see what we got. I'll show you how to adjust it if it's not running right the first time. And hopefully we're going to have an anti-reverse, which I think is what this whole issue was about to begin with. Those two screws are in. Now we should have a free spool right now, and we do. And I did a little bit of tightening on this thing. We're going to see if we can get into drag. Oh, we're not there yet. So back it off when you go to tighten, and then tighten down a few more turns. Give it a spin to make sure you're still in free spool. Go into your first strike. Well, we're not there yet. So just, it's a matter of a trial and error. Now we've got a drag. And we have the max drag position. Now again, look, you've got your spool is turning, it's holding, but the braid is not. So we're pretty close on the adjustment there. Again, turn the spool. You've got the release, full spool. But guess what? I'm not hearing click, click, click. You know why? The anti-reverse is working, isn't it? Well, that was the whole issue of this reel, was that dog was installed backwards. So there you go. I bet you if I take this braid off now, we're going to find that we don't have the monofilament backing. Again, if you are in correct mode here, you're holding, that shouldn't pull off. This is a mess, but it's pulling off, trust me, it's pulling off. And I know that because I can hold my hand on there, turn the reel, and I can turn the spool. And the braid is not moving. So we'll just, we'll keep Joe in the loop on that. He'll do that. He'll learn how to back the reel, and he'll go fishing again because this one's got a second chance. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And to everybody who's our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. To everybody, stay safe, stay well, and have a great day fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.